Hello, you're watching News on the Hour on DD India and I'm Preeti. In the next hour, we'll get you everything that's making it to the headlines and we make sure that we get you all the aspects of the news that are hitting it to the headlines. Enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. We'll get you highlights and we'll get you major, aspects of the visit of US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to India. He arrives in India and for a 3-day visit. We'll get you more on that, as well as we'll get you other national headlines and international updates, also updates from the world of business and sports. Stay with us for the next 1 hour. First, we get you the headlines. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to arrive on a 3-day visit to India today. Austin to hold talks with Defense Minister Rajnath Singh during the visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulates Netherlands counterpart Mark Rutte on election victory. Says looking forward to working with the new government to deepen multifaceted and broad-based cooperation. Campaign in full swing in Assam and West Bengal. BJP releases list of 148 candidates for West Bengal. Last day for filing nominations today in Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. US-China high-level in-person talks begin in Alaska. US tells China that it does not see conflict but will stand up for principles and friends. Russian President Vladimir Putin calls for open talks with US President Joe Biden. Says Russia is ready to discuss bilateral relations as well as regional conflicts. Myanmar's UN envoy says ousted civilian lawmakers in the country are looking at possibilities for International Criminal Court to investigate crimes against humanity committed following the military coup. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro says US intimidated willingness to work closely on a new chapter in bilateral relations. France announces month-long limited lockdown in Paris in view of the third wave of COVID-19. Meanwhile, Spain, Italy, France and Germany to resume the use of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. In sports and All England Open, Indian shuttlers PV Sindhu, Lakshya Sen and doubles pairing of Ashwini Ponnappa and Siki Reddy register wins at the round of 16 stage in Birmingham. Sindhu to take on Japan's third seed Yamaguchi later today. Those are the top stories. Let's begin with the news in detail. We start with the national headlines first. Secretary of Defense of the United States General Lloyd J. Austin will arrive in India today on a 3-day visit. Now, during his visit, Secretary Austin is expected to meet Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh and other senior dignitaries. Both sides are expected to discuss ways to further strengthen bilateral defense cooperation and exchange views on regional security challenges and also common interest in maintaining a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Discussions regarding defense cooperation would also focus on how both the countries could consolidate military-to-military cooperation and defense trade and industry cooperation. Secretary Austin's visit to India as part of his first overseas travel emphasizes the strength of India-US strategic partnership. And joining us more on this is our correspondent Amrit Pal. Amrit, General Austin's visit will be beginning from today onwards, the 3-day visit. Talk more about what is to be expected, because we tell our viewers that this will, the relationship between the two countries ranges from the gains which have been made all through these years when we talk of arms sales, or for that matter technology transfers, defense agreements and also Washington's 2016 designation of India as a major defense partner. When the visit of General Austin begins, how is all this to be taken forward between the two countries?
Well, an important visit both from the point of view of strengthening the bilateral defense relationship that exists. As you mentioned, it's a strategic partnership. The US has designated it as India as a major defense partner. So, taking the bilateral partnership forward in terms of joint production, investment of American companies in India under the Make in India program, as Prime Minister has already pointed out that becoming self-reliant in the defense sector is a key priority for his government. And so America sees huge opportunities to partner with the Indian companies. American companies are keen to invest here, make use of the competitive cost advantage that they get by co-production here, the access to the human resource capital. India stands to gain from the point of view of investment co-production in India, and also the technology transfer that will happen once the American and Indian companies partner for joint ventures. But apart from this, the other aspect of other aspect of this visit is the role that America envisions for India in global governance, be it in the regional security architecture. Remember, this visit comes close on the heels of the summit level meeting of the quadrilateral security dialogue, which took place last week when Prime Minister Modi, Prime Minister Morrison, Prime Minister Yoshihide and President Biden have laid out a vision of a free, fair and prosperous Indo-Pacific, but free from coercion, clearly pointing towards the role, the belligerence that countries like China have shown in the region and bilaterally towards other countries, be it towards India, towards Japan on the Senkaku Islands, towards Southeast Asian countries. So I think this visit would be important from that in that context also, because Secretary Austin would be calling upon having meetings with the National Security Advisor and Dr. Jaishankar, and also with the Prime Minister. So I think from that point of view also, the role two countries wish to play in the Indo-Pacific, especially the responsibility that India is ready to undertake and the world envisions for India. I think that would also be a key element of this visit.
All right. Also, you're talking of the takeaways of the Quad meeting, Amrit, and also we've seen that in the talks between US and China, the in-person talks which are happening in Alaska, US has categorically said that they do not want any conflict, but at the same time they will go by principles and will stand by friends. So we need a strong message also, coming out from the Biden administration.
Could you repeat the last part of the question,
yes,
please?
A strong message when we talk of US, vowing to stand by friends, and also you talk of the the challenges or the geopolitical positioning of the countries in the Indo-Pacific region. So what message do we read from here on? Also, when Secretary Austin will meet Indian leadership here.
I think the message is very clear. The message not just from America, but from the world. As Quad is not just the US, it's Japan, it's Australia, of course it's India. The message is very, very clear that any sort of adventurism, any sort of belligerence by countries who believe that the Indo-Pacific or the South China Sea is their backyard shall not be put up with. The global security architecture has to be free, fair and open and inclusive. There has to be free passage for sea lanes, undue dominance, undue influence over the region, unilateral influence over the region. The world is not ready to put up with. And I think that was the message that came out of the Quad security dialogue also. And I think when Secretary Austin reaches India and discusses this with his Indian counterpart and other high-ranking ministers and officials. I think China would be watching this very, very closely, because this is the first visit of Secretary Austin, overseas first visit. And remember, he started this visit by visiting Hawaii, the headquarters of the Indo-Pacific Command, and thereon he goes on to Japan, to South Korea, to India. So I think the choice of stops and the message emanating out of this visit is very clear that unilateralism will not be the order. A rules-based order in the international theatre is what the world will accept, and nothing short of that.
All right, Amrit, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs. That was our correspondent Amritpal Singh spelling out more on Secretary Austin's visit, which begins, the 3-day visit, which begins from today. He will be arriving in India and we'll keep you updated. Meanwhile, let's get to other news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated his Netherlands counterpart, Mark Rutte, on his election victory. In a tweet, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote him, "Heartiest congratulations to my friend Mark Rutte for leading his party to be the largest in parliamentary elections in Netherlands. I look forward to working with the new government of Netherlands to further deepen our multifaceted and broad-based cooperation." The process of forming a new Dutch governing coalition began yesterday after Prime Minister Mark Rutte's Conservative Party powered to a 4th consecutive victory in a vote held during a nationwide lockdown and dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Rutte wants to move quickly to hammer out a COVID-19 recovery plan before getting into a government blueprint for the new coalition's 4-year term. The splintered political landscape in the Netherlands, 17 parties were forecast to have won at least one seat, could make coalition talks difficult.
Liberal Party an overwhelming vote of confidence, and it is humbling. It is also forcing us to do everything we can to make a success out of it. Not everything has gone well in the last 10 years. Take the child benefit issue, which we have to solve, the earthquakes in Groningen. But of course, the main issue also on the table for the next years is how to rebuild the country going forward after Corona.
Both houses of parliament witnessed smooth conduct of proceedings yesterday. Rajya Sabha passed the bill to raise FDI limit in insurance sector to 74%, while the lower house passed supplementary demand for grants for Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry. Today in Lok Sabha, the Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Harshvardhan, will move the amendments made to Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendments Bill 2020 in Rajya Sabha, and that has to be considered and agreed to. On the other hand, the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Bill 2021 and the Constitution Scheduled Caste Order Amendment Bill 2021 are to be moved for consideration and passage. In Rajya Sabha today, the Minister of State for External Affairs, Shri V. Muralidharan, will make a statement regarding government business for the week commencing Monday. Discussions on the working of the Ministries of Tourism, Food Processing Industries, Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Rural Development and Tribal Affairs are also scheduled to be conducted today in Rajya Sabha. Vikas Sarthi is joining us on phone line for more on that. Vikas, very quickly, we've given a broad outline of the legislative agenda that has to be taken up in both the houses. You spell out more details. What do we look forward to?
All right, three important bills are in Lok Sabha. Medical termination of pregnancy bill. It has already been passed by the Rajya Sabha. The bill aims to increase the limit of medical termination of pregnancy from 20 weeks to 24 weeks. So this bill now today will be discussed and voted in Lok Sabha. As we are aware that Mines and Minerals Development Amendment Bill will also be taken into consideration. After that, the Constitution Order Amendment Bill 2021, which is aimed at inclusion of some caste in scheduled caste in Tamil Nadu. That bill will also be today discussed in Lok Sabha. So far as the Rajya Sabha is concerned, Minister V. Muralidharan will make a statement about the government businesses next week. So we will be able to know whether there is a proposal of shortening the session as demanded by some of the MPs. Apart from that, there will be discussion on at 4 ministries, on the working of 4 ministries: Ministry of Tourism, Food Processing Industry, Agriculture and Tribal Affairs. In Rajya Sabha there will be no private members bill business this week. So these are the important things which will be taken up by both the houses.
All right, Vikas, thank you so much for joining us with those updates. We'll come back to you again once the once both the houses rather begin the proceedings. And also today is the last day for candidates to file nomination for the upcoming General Assembly elections of Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Kerala. Today is also the last date for candidates to file nomination for Phase 3 of the upcoming General Assembly elections in Assam. In West Bengal, today is the last date for candidates to file nomination for Phase 3. Talking of campaigning, Assam Minister and BJP leader Himanta Biswa Sarma will hold a road show today from Sonaram Field to DC office in Kamrup Metro before filing his nomination for Jalukbari constituency. Also, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi is scheduled to interact with college students at Lahowal in Dibrugarh district of Assam. He is also likely to address election rally at Dumduma in Tinsukia, whereas TMC leader and West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is likely to address rally in Nandigram. Senior BJP leaders Mukul Roy and Rahul Sinha were among the 148 candidates named by the party on Thursday for last 4 phases of West Bengal Assembly elections. Out of the total 294 Assembly seats, BJP has so far announced its candidates in 282 seats, while leaving 1 seat for AJSU. The names of candidates for the remaining 11 seats will be announced later. And joining us more on this is our correspondent Abhishek Jha and Yogesh Sheetal. Yogesh, to begin with you, I would want you to acquaint us with the electoral battle in the state. We will see that Congress will be fighting the elections without Tarun Gogoi this time around. But apart from that, what are other surprise elements? What are other interesting elements in the electoral battle which we would look out for this time around?
Yeah, you are right. That is the first time Congress is contesting election in Assam without Tarun Gogoi, and also that is also an issue in this election because what was the policy of Tarun Gogoi, what was the ideology of Tarun Gogoi is now not making any points with the current state of Congress party, and that's the reason why Rajnath Singh, when he was addressing a rally in Assam, he also said that Tarun Gogoi has never allied with AIUDF, but this time Congress is now making AIUDF as a partner. So there is also a lot of things were given in this election, particularly as far as speeches of BJP leaders are concerned. So definitely this is the first time Congress is contesting without Tarun Gogoi, and also some previous ideologies are now changed. Congress has in fact changed its stand, and that is also creating some sort of reservations within the party. Now coming to other aspects, as far as electoral matters are concerned, we know that all the leaders, no leader want any stone unturned, won't let any stone unturned as far as promises are concerned, as far as states are concerned. Now coming to especially Congress, today is the important day because Rahul Gandhi, who is the former Congress president, he is going to address a rally in Dumduma also, and before the rally also he is going to interact with college students, also tea workers. So this is not the first time, this is the second time in fact Rahul Gandhi will be addressing a rally here in Assam. Also recently we had seen that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, she had also addressed a rally here, and also she has showed that if Congress forms government in Assam, then she will ensure that 2,000 rupees would be given to per household as a generally for respect for women. That will be a scheme by the Congress if Congress comes to power then. Apart from that, coming to BJP perspective, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already had a rally yesterday in Karimganj, and tomorrow he is also scheduled to address a rally in Shabua constituency. So also apart from Narendra Modi, also the other star campaigners from the BJP, we have seen rallies by JP Nadda, also by Rajnath Singh, Yogi Adityanath also we had seen Manoj Tiwari hold a rally yesterday. So these are the rallies that are being on. Now coming to issues, obviously tea workers and basically tea tribes are going to be, they have a sizable number here in Assam, and around 20 to 40% voters belong to those communities. So definitely that is an issue. Their concerns, their demands are an issue, and that is the reason why Rahul Gandhi will be going to interact with tea workers. Apart from that, also there are other issues like flood is obviously an issue, and the BJP has assured that BJP will ensure that the state would be flood-free state, and also the steps that are being taken by the state government recently. We are seeing some infrastructure works around to ensure that floods don't affect the area that generally we see each year around lakhs of people are migrated from both the valleys, from Brahmaputra Valley as well as from Barak Valley in the southern part of Assam, and also northern part of Assam, that is Brahmaputra Valley. So also flood is obviously an issue, and apart from that many regional issues are there, like development is obviously an issue for youths, job and employment are issues for women, safety, and also basically women self-help groups are very active in Assam and basically northeast region. So their demands are also there because they want their products to get a better market, better packaging, better source of income. So a lot of things are there as far as election issues are concerned. Yeah.
All right, Yogesh, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a comprehensive output from Assam. That was our correspondent Yogesh Sheetal explaining us, the issues, the electoral battle, the prospects of the parties from Assam. We'll keep you updated. Let's get to other news also. Today is the 82nd raising day of the Central Reserve Police Force. Minister of State for Home Affairs Nityanand Rai was present on the raising day ceremony held in Gurugram. He was accorded Guard of Honor by the troops, and the minister also felicitated the families of CRPF personnel with gallantry awards. On the occasion, CRPF personnel carried out Raising Day Parade in Gurugram. CRPF was formed on July 27th in 1939. It is the premier central police force founded for internal security. Originally constituted as the Crown Representative Police in 1939, it is one of the oldest central paramilitary force.
और निष्ठा उसे आगे बढ़ती हुई परेड कमांडर कमांडेंट विजय सिंह खटाना.
The parade contingents marching smartly to the tunes played by the CRPF band.
While addressing the Raising Day ceremony, Director General of CRPF Kuldeep Singh said that CRPF plays a crucial role in dealing with Naxalism. He said that law and order situation in the northeast has shown improvement. Besides, they have efficiently worked towards security of pilgrim places like Vaishno Devi, Ram Janmabhoomi and Amarnath.
देश में जहां कहीं भी कानून और व्यवस्था की समस्या होती है, चुनाव या अन्य किसी भी प्रकार की ड्यूटी में जब भी केंद्रीय सुरक्षा बलों की आवश्यकता होती है, तो राज्य सबसे पहले सीआरपीएफ की ही मांग करते हैं. केंद्र सरकार ने भी चुनाव हेतु सीआरपीएफ को ही नोडल एजेंसी नियुक्त किया है. जम्मू कश्मीर में सैकड़ों दुर्दांत आतंकवादियों को मार गिराने एवं फिदायीन हमलों को नाकाम करने में इस बल ने बड़ी कामयाबी हासिल की है. यह बल अपनी पूरी दक्षता एवं कार्यकुशलता से श्री अमरनाथ यात्रा, श्री माता वैष्णो देवी, राम जन्मभूमि, कृष्ण जन्मभूमि, संसद भवन की सुरक्षा आदि का दायित्व भी सफलतापूर्वक निभा रहा है. देश ही नहीं वरंतु विदेशों में भी यूएन मिशन के अंतर्गत कोसोवो, श्रीलंका, हाइती, लाइबेरिया में भी इस बल ने अपनी महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका अदा की है.
Up next, we take a look at COVID-19 updates from across the country. As per the Union Health Ministry, 20,654 recoveries were recorded in the last 24 hours, taking the cumulative number of recovered patients to 1,10,83,679. With this, the recovery rate currently stands at 96.14%, that is 96.41%. India's active caseload stands at over 2.71 lakh today. Also, the country's present active caseload consists of 2.2% of the total positive cases. The fatality rate stands at 1.39%. India is fast approaching total vaccination coverage of 4 crore. The cumulative number of COVID vaccine doses administered in the country has crossed 3.89 crore so far. On 62nd day yesterday, over 17.83 lakh vaccine doses were given. Meanwhile, the number of COVID tests conducted across the country has crossed 23 crore. The cumulative national positivity rate continues to remain less than 5%. And Jamaican cricketer Chris Gayle has thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Government of India for donating COVID-19 vaccines to his home country, Jamaica. Earlier this month, Jamaica had thanked India for sending 50,000 doses of the vaccines.
I want to thank you all for your donation of vaccine to Jamaica. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. India, I will be seeing you soon. All right. Thanks again. Love and appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And replying to Gayle, Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri tweeted, and I quote, "Always a pleasure to watch this famous Jamaican send the ball flying to all corners of the park, and delighted that Vaccine Mehri is reaching out to our friends across the world. Indian fans look forward to more from this batting genius." And in view of the rising COVID-19 infections in Punjab, the state government has decided to extend night curfew by 2 hours in 9 worst impacted districts of Ludhiana, Jalandhar, Patiala, Mohali, Amritsar, Gurdaspur, Hoshiarpur, Kapurthala and Ropar. Curfew, which was earlier imposed from 11 p.m, will now be enforced from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh has urged people to wear masks and observe precautions. Amidst the large number and the rising cases in Ahmedabad, Gujarat government too has increased the timing of night curfew in the city. From today, the restrictions will remain in place from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. instead of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. As per the official order, all shopping malls and movie theatres in the city will also remain shut on Saturdays and Sundays. Ahmedabad, being one of the high caseload cities in Gujarat, has been facing several restrictions. The city's civic body on Wednesday ordered the closure of all gardens and parks till further orders. Apart from this, bus services coming under AMTS and Ahmedabad Bus Rapid Transit System have also been suspended until further orders. Amidst the surge in COVID-19 cases in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh government has banned the movement of passenger buses between the two states. In a virtual review meeting held yesterday evening, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan instructed Transport Department to stop the movement of all kinds of passenger buses to and from Maharashtra from tomorrow. Chief Minister also directed officials to make necessary arrangements for vaccinating 5 lakh people per day with the COVID-19 vaccine. At the end, Chauhan asserted that precautions are the best way to contain the spread. Meanwhile, 917 cases have been recorded in the state.
कि जो गाइडलाइन हमें बनाई है उसका पालन करें। वैक्सीनेशन का अभियान हम और तेजी से प्रारंभ कर रहे हैं। विशेषकर जिन जिलों में संक्रमण ज़्यादा है वहाँ वैक्सीनेशन को और प्राथमिकता देंगे। एक तरफ वैक्सीनेशन का अभियान और दूसरी तरफ संक्रमण रोकने के उपाय और तीसरी तरफ आवश्यक पड़ने पर इलाज की व्यवस्था है वो सब कर रहे हैं हम।
And up next, we're heading for a short commercial break on News India. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us.
The changing world of news. Headlines that you wake up to. News that shapes your day. Stories that matter to you. The latest and most accurate updates. A fresh start to a new day. The Breakfast News, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. on DD India. Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in Middle East countries, STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching News on the Hour, and let's get to international updates now. The United States and China are holding their first high-level in-person talks in Alaska. The United States has told China that it does not see conflict but will stand up for principles and friends. The Biden administration said that Chinese actions threaten a global order based on rules and vowing that Washington would also stand up for its friends. The U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke at the start of the talks with Chinese counterparts in Alaska. Secretary of State Antony Blinken told Chinese officials that the U.S. side would discuss its deep concerns about Chinese actions in Xinjiang, Hong Kong and Taiwan, as well as cyber attacks on the United States and economic coercion of the allies. The United States has warned China of respecting global order or facing a more violent world. A group of protesters took to the streets of near the locations of Atlanta area shootings in the southeastern U.S. state of Georgia, demanding authorities to label the shooting incident as a hate crime. The shooting had killed 8 people earlier in the week. The crowd gathered outside Young's Asian Massage in the town of Acworth following reports that the suspect claimed his motive was not racially motivated. Georgia killings have prompted police departments across the country to step up patrols and also visibility in Asian American communities around New York City, Chicago, Atlanta and San Francisco. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called for open talks with US President Joe Biden. Russia's president said that he was ready to hold discussions with US on bilateral relations as well as other issues such as regional conflicts. While talking to a television channel, President Putin said that he will order his foreign ministry to prepare the talks. Putin expressed interest to hold talks with the US a day after Biden said that he thought the Russian leader was a killer, and already poor relations between Moscow and Washington sank to a new post-Cold War low. Severe storm in U.S.'s county Chilton in Alabama has caused extensive damage. The National Weather Service informed that at least 12 counties across central Alabama have been identified where potential tornadoes may have been tracked in. A system of severe thunderstorms spawned tornadoes in Alabama and Mississippi, leaving a trail of damage as it moved across parts of southern United States. In Peru, heavy rains have caused massive flood and destruction. Dramatic footage released by Northern Peruvian Department of Piura showed floods sweeping away houses. At least 15 homes and around 100 farmlands have been destroyed. More than 3,600 families in Piura Department's remote mountainous area have been cut off after 5 bridges collapsed in the aftermath of the heavy rains, although authorities have not reported any deaths. Wildfires continue to ravage across northeastern Mexico after suspension of firefighting operations due to bad weather. The fires have destroyed around 3,500 hectares of forest and grassland. 70 families have been evacuated and a dozen cabins have been destroyed in Arteaga Sierra between the northern states of Coahuila and also Nuevo Leon. High temperatures and strong winds have stoked the flames and have made the fire control difficult. A committee of ousted civilian lawmakers in Myanmar is looking at whether it can ask the International Criminal Court to investigate any crimes against humanity committed following the February 1 military coup. Myanmar has been in crisis since the army ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi's government in a coup. Security forces have used increasingly violent tactics to suppress daily demonstrations, and thousands of people have been detained. Independent United Nations human rights investigator Thomas Andrews told the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva last week that Myanmar military had committed killings, torture and persecution, that may constitute crimes against humanity. Myanmar is not a member of the ICC. Meanwhile, hundreds of people have fled Myanmar's towns and cities since last month's military coup and are sheltering in areas controlled by ethnic militias on the Thai border. More than 24 ethnic armed groups are active in Myanmar's borderlands. And according to reports, Thai authorities are bracing for a surge of refugees and have set aside areas to shelter more than 43,000 people in Mae Sot district. Thai border patrols have also been increased. Up next, we'll take a quick global update on the COVID-19 situation. When we talk of the figures, the global COVID-19 case tally, which has crossed 12 crore mark 3 days ago, is now standing at over 12 crore 18 lakh. The tally of recovery stands over 9 crore 81 lakh. COVID-19 has claimed over 26 lakh 91,000 lives worldwide. The US continues to remain worst affected from COVID-19, where more than 3 crore 2 lakh cases of COVID-19 have been quoted. The country's fatalities have crossed 5 lakh 50,000. France has announced a month-long limited lockdown in Paris and several other regions in view of the third wave of COVID-19. France's Prime Minister on Thursday announced a decision of month-long lockdown. He said that the tougher restrictions followed a clear acceleration in the spread of the virus, with France now in the grip of a third wave. The lockdown will be imposed on 16 hardest hit departments. It takes effect from midnight on Friday. Schools will stay open and people will be allowed to exercise outdoors within a 10 kilometers radius of their homes. People living in these areas would not be allowed to travel to other parts of France without a compelling reason. Meanwhile, Spain, Italy, France and Germany will resume the use of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines. France will resume vaccinating people against COVID-19 with AstraZeneca vaccine. French Prime Minister will receive the vaccine on Friday afternoon. Also, French President said that demonstrated efficacy of AstraZeneca vaccine with regard to prevention of hospitalizations and deaths linked to COVID largely won over the extremely low possibility of developing side effects. Spain will resume administering AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine from next Wednesday. Spain, which aims to vaccinate 70% of its 47 million population by end of summer, has already given the first dose of AstraZeneca vaccine to almost 1 million people out of a total of 7.68 million vaccines administered in Spain. Germany will also resume the use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine as on Friday. President of Germany's authority in charge of vaccines said that AstraZeneca vaccines would be labelled with a warning sign asking people to seek rapid medical advice if appropriate. Drug watchdogs in the European Union and Britain have moved to shore up confidence in AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine on Thursday after reports of blood clots prompted more than a dozen nations to suspend inoculations. The European Union's drug watchdog said that it is still convinced the benefits of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine outweighed the risks following an investigation into reports of blood clots that prompted more than a dozen nations to suspend its use. The African Union also said on Thursday that African countries should continue to use AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine, echoing the WHO by saying the shot's benefits outweighed the risks. Violence erupted in Paraguay's capital after Paraguayan opposition lawmakers lost a bid to impeach President Mario Abdo over the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. A small group of protesters attacked the headquarters of the National Republicans Association, that is the ruling party in the country. The protesters also set afire a part of the building, which was later brought under control by police with no major damage or injuries reported. Police dispersed stone-throwing protesters with rubber bullets and water cannons. Abdo's conservative government has faced fierce protests in recent weeks as a surge in COVID-19 cases has left hospitals on the brink of collapse and out of drugs, while the country has been slow to secure vaccines. And Indian indices were off days low on Friday as FMCG, energy and pharma stocks recovered and turned positive. However, losses in auto, metals and financials kept the indices in the red. The overall market sentiment is negative as a spike in bond yields spooked investors. The yield on the benchmark 10-year Treasury bonds hit 1.71%, the highest in almost 14 months. Currently, Sensex is down at around 49,000, while Nifty fell to around 14,500. Wall Street ended sharply lower on Thursday. The markets hit by rising Treasury yields and fresh worries about COVID-19 pandemic in Europe. Losses in US stocks accelerated after France's Prime Minister imposed a month-long lockdown on Paris and several other regions due to the health crisis. The S&P 500 energy sector index stumbled as oil prices fell, in part due to worries about rising COVID-19 cases in Europe. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.46%, the S&P 500 lost 1.48%, and the Nasdaq Composite dropped 3.02%. The S&P 500 and Dow both closed at record highs on Wednesday. Asian stocks opened lower, pressurized by US Treasury yields that rose to 14-month highs overnight, and also oil prices, which fell by their biggest one-day decline since last summer. Australia's index lost 0.21% in early trading, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index lost 0.66% to 29,207.99. In Japan, where the central bank will meet, the Nikkei 225 Index declined 0.81% to 29,970.76. Oil prices fell on Friday, extending losses for a sixth day as a new wave of COVID-19 infections wash across Europe, spurring new lockdowns and dampening hopes for a recovery in demand for fuels anytime soon. US crude fell below $60 again and was trading at $59.97 per barrel. Brent crude was off by 1 cent at $63.27. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman yesterday replied to the debate on the Insurance Amendment Bill 2021 in Rajya Sabha. She said that FDI insurance has been brought with the objective of implementing long-term capital demand, as insurance business is capital intensive. She added that the decision in this regard has been taken to ensure penetration of insurance in the remotest part of the country.
FDI policy is brought in only to supplement domestic long-term capital. Supplement. Because we don't have adequate, we need to have a way in which we can bring in additional resources which can supplement what is available in the country. And what is available in the country is not sufficient. So we need to supplement it. And the FDI policy, therefore, will, with the additional capital which comes in, enhance the insurance presence in this country. Penetration is the word we are using. What is there? To go deep into the country and touch the poorest of the poor with some kind of a insurance inclusion.
While responding to a discussion on Insurance Amendment Bill, the Finance Minister also said that fugitive businessmen Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi are coming back to India to face the law.
Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, Mehul Choksi, all of them are coming back to face the law of this land. Atmanirbharta.
Let's get to sports updates now. Surya Kumar Yadav's blistering maiden 50 helped India register a series levelling 8-run victory over England in the 4th T20 International in Ahmedabad yesterday. As to bat, India posted 185 for 8, which was their highest total in the series, thanks largely to a 31-ball 57 from Surya Kumar, and then restricted England to 177 for 8 to win the match and level the 5-match series to each. India were led by Rohit Sharma in these anxious moments as Virat Kohli left the field due to an injury. Ace Indian shutter PV Sindhu progressed to the quarterfinals of the All England Open after registering a comprehensive straight games win over Denmark's Line Christopherson. Sindhu, the reigning world champion, dominated the encounter and moved to the next round with ease as she defeated Christopherson 21-8, 21-8 in just 25 minutes. Sindhu will face tricky rival Japanese shuttler Akane Yamaguchi in the quarterfinal clash today. And team shuttler Lakshya Sen advanced to the last 8. Lakshya downed Thomas Roxel of France 21-18, 21-17 hours after defeating world number 1 Cantafon Wangchaeyon of Thailand 21-18, 21-12 in the first round. World number 28 will face Mark Kaljau of the Netherlands, who defeated Nat Goen of Ireland. Now this will be the first meeting between the two. Earlier, Lakshya had claimed the Asian Junior Championships title, the World Junior Championships bronze and Youth Olympics Games silver in 2018. Let's change track now. Ganga, the most sacred river, is now becoming a successful example of combination of government's initiatives and public participation. Ankit Agrawal, an entrepreneur from Uttar Pradesh's Kanpur, has been helping to minimize the damage by turning tons of floral waste into incense sticks. Let's watch this report.
The river Ganges once was a paradox, deeply revered by millions, but was also among the world's most polluted river. Within last 7 years, the picture has tremendously improved, thanks to various initiatives taken by the central government, including Clean Ganga Mission and enthusiastic public participation. One such movement was led by Ankit Agarwal, an entrepreneur from Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh, whose company is helping to minimize the damage by turning tons of floral waste into incense sticks.
So every year more than 500 million Hindus go to temples to worship, and we offer flowers to our gods. Flowers as the mode of offering the best that humanity can offer. Hardly does anyone think what happens to these flowers afterwards. Sadly, these sacred flowers are dumped into water bodies like the river Ganges to respect their sanctity. Every year, we Indians put in about 8 million tons of flowers in the Ganges. All the pesticides and insecticides that were used to grow these flowers mixes with the river water, making it highly toxic.
Ankit was inspired to work towards cleaning Ganga several years ago when he noticed bubbles bursting and water reacting to a dump of floral waste being unloaded by a truck as people bathed. He started his company Phool in 2017.
The sheer volume of flowers is overriding the biophysical stability of our river Ganges. So what we do is we collect these flowers from the temples directly, bring them to our facility, wash off all the pesticides and convert these flowers into incense sticks, gulal.
Ankit is also working on creating other biodegradable materials from floral waste, one of them being a green alternative to styrofoam that decomposes in less than a month, and a form of leather that he calls fleather. Phool now employs over 100 workers, mostly women, at its factory in Kanpur. Bureau Report, DD India.
Alright, floral waste, they are being converted into something meaningful, and in the process also is leading to cleanliness in the Ganga river. On that note, we'll end this edition of News on the Art here. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.